Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Well done, OP. They should move to a house if they don't want to hear their neighbors. Sounds like you've tried to be respectful and accommodate. You can't help if your child's crying. He's definitely the a-hole. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Slammed the door in my neighbor's face. So, just for some context, me, 27-year-old female, and my partner, 27-year-old male, have an 18-month-old daughter. We live in a top-floor flat in the south of England and have lived here for 3.5 years. Our previous neighbors below me moved about 5 to 6 months ago, and we now have new neighbors. They're a couple in their early to mid-20s. I'd say for the purpose of this story, I'll call them John and Jane. We've seen them a few times in passing on the stairwell, and they seem nice enough. A month or so ago, Jane knocked on the door and asked if it's possible that we could keep the noise to a minimum as she works from home and can hear sounds in her living room and is trying to work. I told her I'd do my best to accommodate her, however, I have a toddler that doesn't always understand how to be quiet really, and so that may not always be possible. She seemed okay with that answer and went back downstairs. I begun to place thick blankets on the floor in the living room and her bedroom to hopefully mitigate the sounds, and until recent, I thought it was fine. Well, recently my daughter's been sick with a chest infection, and it's been a rough time while she gets better. Last week, John came up and knocked on the door and began to complain about the noise again. I informed him that I've been trying my best to keep the noise down while she's playing, but there's only so much I can do. He then proceeds to tell me that's not the issue, but my daughter's crying is. I told him that I'm really sorry, but she's been unwell and I can't stop her from crying when she's not feeling well. I explained that it's not something I can control and I'm doing what I can because she's just not sleeping. He wasn't happy with the answer I gave him and started off on a tirade of really horrible things, calling me all the names under the sun and saying that I must be a crappy parent if I can't comfort her enough for her to stop crying. I lost it and told him that I refuse to be spoken to that way and that I've been more than accommodating to him and Jane when it comes to my daughter playing, and that I'm sorry that I cannot control when my daughter cries. That I'm doing the best I can and I wish I was also getting more rest. I then proceeded to call him a few more colorful names myself and slammed the door in his face. My partner was at work, so I called a friend of mine who said that although he agreed with me, I shouldn't have slammed the door in his face and should have tried to be more respectful of him, and that I should knock downstairs and apologize to him. Edit. A couple of people have asked, so yes, my partner knows about what happened. I'm not usually a confrontational person and tend to back down a lot. I'm usually a little ball of anxiety, so he said that he's proud of me for standing up for myself. He's quite angry about it. He asked me not to talk to either John or Jane because, in his words, they don't deserve to talk to you or our daughter. He wants to get police involved and was waiting on me to decide what I want to do. Also, I'll send an email over to the letting agent and block management to let them know what's going on. Edit 2. I made the report to the police via their online chat, and they'll be calling me to make a statement and send over the video footage that another neighbor got on their door cam. I'm only reporting it so that there's a record of what happened to make sure there's a paper trail in case either John or Jane retaliate towards me and my daughter or do this to someone else in the building. I've also emailed the block management and the letting agent just to inform them of what's happening. And our second story. Ruined my wife and mother-in-law's relationship because mother-in-law was being overly flirty towards me. So this story starts a little over a year ago when my father-in-law, 70, was diagnosed with cancer. By the time they found it, it had metastasized into neighboring organs and eventually into his spine. During the time when it was first discovered, mother-in-law, 58, was under extreme mental duress and would show up at our house, sometimes in the middle of the night crying. My wife, 30 at the time, was very pregnant, and so, with her permission, I, 29, would console mother-in-law, hug, assure everything was going to be fine, etc. We went on a vacation as an entire family, and what we thought was going to be a kind of quiet experience was more of a celebratory one. The treatment was working, the cancer had stopped progressing, and he was in better shape than he should have been. On this vacation, however, my wife and I had a little extra time one morning, so we lounged out on the balcony of the suite we had stayed in. To be perfectly frank, I had morning wood and was wearing tight shorts, so you can get the picture. Mother-in-law came out onto the balcony as we were stirring, and I caught her staring at my crotch. We made eye contact, and she looked away, and I greeted her quickly to make it not awkward. The moment passed, and everything seemed okay. Except ever since then, she makes a point of lingering in hugs and brushing her breasts against me when she asks to hold our child, which is every time I'm in the room with them. So I tried to make a point of not being in the room with her when I'm with my child or coming up with an excuse to not pass them off. So it all came to a head this past Thanksgiving when we met at their house. There was a moment when I was walking towards the kitchen and she came down the hallway towards me. The hallway is tight at their house and slowly moved past me with her rear poked out into my crotch. That was the last straw. I debated up until that point on telling my wife because everything until then felt as though it could be hearsay and mother-in-law would just say it was all in my head. So the following week, I sat my wife down and told her everything that had happened from until Thanksgiving, and she was furious. She agreed with me, though, that it could all be a misunderstanding and wanted to see how mother-in-law interacted with me in the next couple of weeks to see for herself if anything was off. She watched, and I could see it in her eyes how much she was stewing inside when we brought our child over to the house, and her mom immediately went to take them out of my arms and pressed herself against me in the process. I made eye contact with my wife, and she blew up. Long story short, the family's pissed at me for starting it all and are calling me the a-hole because the family had finally gotten into a place of being at peace and father-in-law was doing better, etc., etc. I didn't think of it really in those terms, just how uncomfortable I felt with the situation, and maybe I am. Update number 1. Woke up to a text this morning from father-in-law wanting to grab lunch today, just me and him. I'm going, probably against my better judgment. Update number 2. So sorry for the super late post. A lot has happened in the past 2 months, and I've been caught up in the whirlwind of what's all been going on. The lunch with my father-in-law went differently than I was expecting. Essentially, he told me mother-in-law has had symptoms of Alzheimer's/dementia for a couple of years, and they hadn't told anyone in the family, and apparently that can cause deviant sexual behavior. He also suspects that she's manic-depressive and has been since my wife was born. He apologized for her behavior and said they're trying to hold it all together, but since he was diagnosed, it's been hard managing the two of those things together, and they don't know how to. He asked me not to tell my wife any of this, which I did. He essentially asked me to take one for the team, and I refused. I told him that I understand how difficult this must be for him, but I absolutely cannot lie and take blame for something this reprehensible. He said that he understood and wouldn't expect any less. He told me that he'd misjudged me when my wife and I first started dating. They didn't speak with she or I for a year and a half and apologized for his behavior. He said that in all his life, he's never had to confront his problem with racism and that he was working on himself. I accepted his apology and we shook hands and parted ways. Since then, he's been in the hospital twice for week-plus long stints. He's currently in the hospital now. We think the cancer is metastasized to his lungs as his oxygen has dropped into the mid-70s this hospital visit. I know that he planned on telling the family the truth, but I don't know if he'd gotten around to it because of health issues. All in all, we're hoping for a recovery from this horrible disease. Like I said, it's been 2 long months and I've just now gotten around to be online. Thank you all for your patience and understanding. And our last story. You're not disabled, you're just faking it to get attention. This story isn't mine exactly, but the situation I found myself in was, it happened a few years ago when I was working at a booth in a mall selling phone cases. There's a rumor in my town, no clue how it started, that this guy, Justin, not his real name, is faking being in a wheelchair to get attention and sympathy. I know him personally and know that this rumor is not true. He was hit by a drunk driver while crossing a pedestrian crossing 10 years ago and is a paraplegic. I'm a C4, C5 incomplete quadriplegic and can spot a fake disabled person easily. Anyone else with a spinal cord injury will be able to relate. I was at work and serving a customer when I saw Justin going past in his wheelchair. My customer saw him and scoffed, "Can you believe people like that? It's bad enough for people like you, but people like him? He needs to stop faking it." I was shocked, and for a second I didn't know what to say. I was in customer service mode and didn't want to say anything that could make me lose my job. That's Justin. He's a paraplegic. He's not faking it. Customer. Oh, he's fooled you too, you poor girl. Me. His name's Justin, and he was hit by a drunk driver 10 years ago on street name. He was in a coma for a week and lost sensation from the waist down. If you look this up online, you'll find the report of the incident. Please do some research and don't believe everything you hear. She muttered some half-arsed apology and walked away without buying anything. I wanted to say that I haven't heard any other conversations about Justin faking it, but it's a small town and gossip spreads like herpes here. It's been about 13 years since his injury, and for someone that's supposedly faking it, he's kept up the ruse very well. The moral of the story, don't believe everything you hear. I don't understand these people. Why the hell would someone fake being disabled? Do they somehow think it's nice being in a wheelchair constantly? Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.